Trevor Deeley worked in Bank of Ireland in the IT department, which was based in Dublin City. On December 7th, 2000, Trevor went to a Christmas party with some of his colleagues, and coincidentally, there was a taxi strike in Dublin that night. And Trevor needed to walk for 20 minutes, and the rain was heavy, so Trevor stopped by the Bank of Ireland he worked at, so he could grab his umbrella for the journey back. And strangely, the CCTV at the bank shows a man dressed all in black standing behind one of the pillars at the bank's gate. And the man can be seen standing there for over half an hour before Trevor arrives. A little after 3:30 AM, the man takes out his phone to take a call. And a few minutes later, Trevor also walked by on the phone. The police would determine that at the exact time Trevor took the phone call, he was speaking to a co-worker who was still working at the bank. And the CCTV shows Trevor standing at the gate, waiting for his co-worker to open the gate. And this is when you see another man step out of the shadows and begin a conversation with Trevor at the gate. Now it doesn't look like they know each other, but Trevor, he looks calm. And a few moments later, Trevor walks into the bank. And a few minutes after this, the man walks out of view. Trevor's co-worker would say, when Trevor came to the building, they had a cup of tea, and they chatted about the Christmas party that night. And Trevor then logged onto his PC, and then he left the bank at around 4 AM. The CC then shows Trevor walking out of the gate at 4:02 AM, opening his umbrella before resuming his journey home. A few minutes later, at 4:06 AM, he made a phone call to a friend, and the call was to let the friend know that everything was okay and that he was on his way home. But since the friend wasn't available at the time, he left a voicemail. And this voicemail will be the last time anyone heard from Trevor Deeley. At 4:14 AM, Trevor was seen on CCTV walking by an ATM around 15 minutes from his apartment. But less than 30 seconds after, a man in all black appears on the screen, and he appears to be following Trevor. 16 years later, the CCTV was enhanced, and the police determined the man who was following Trevor was the same man at the bank, and this was the last footage we ever seen of Trevor. He never showed up to work the next day, and no one would think anything of it, as they had a party the night before, and a lot of his colleagues were either out sick or they took the day off. But after his friends and family couldn't get in touch with Trevor over the weekend, and he didn't show up for work the following Monday, he was then reported missing. His friends and family were the ones who obtained the CCTV and not the police. They went around to local businesses and shops nearby which would be on Trevor's route, and they collected the footage. But it was 4 days later when they received it. And at that time, CCTVs were recorded on VHS tapes, and they were often recorded over, erasing the previous footage in the process. Now over the years, several theories of Trevor's disappearances have surfaced. Some people say Trevor may have been intoxicated that night, which may have caused Trevor to fall into the water on the bridge Trevor would have walked by on his way home. However, after searches, no signs of Trevor were ever found. Most people believe whoever was following Trevor that night was most likely involved in his disappearance, but he would never be identified. In 2017, police received information from a source, and the source claimed to know what happened to Trevor that night. According to the source, the man following Trevor that night, he was a gang member, and he murdered Trevor, as Trevor refused to help him gain access to the Bank of Ireland. The man supposedly buried Trevor in the bushes close to where Trevor was last seen. Now the site was searched for 2 months before it had to be called off. It's now 24 years after Trevor's disappearance, and the case still remains unsolved. Yan Jansson, a 41-year-old man from Iceland, would visit Ireland on February the 8th, 2019 to play a poker tournament. He checked into the Bonnington hotel in the north of Dublin, the same hotel hosting the tournament. Yan played the tournament that night, and by all accounts, he was well, even after losing 4,000 in the tournament. He was said to have been drinking a lot of alcohol that night also. Jan's fiancée Janne would be arriving the next day, which would be the 9th, to spend the rest of the weekend with Jan after he had finished the poker tournament, and they were going to explore Dublin and Ireland. Janne would arrive to the hotel around 10 AM, where she would still find Jan sleeping. He was sleeping off the drink from the night before. They had a brief conversation, and Janne went straight down to get some coffee. And in the short period of time she was gone, Jan up and left the hotel, and this was around 11:05 AM. He was seen on CCTV walking past a pub and a nursing home, before exiting on Swords Road. He was later captured on CCTV, passing a health centre, and this would be the last time Jan was seen again. After he didn't arrive to the hotel all day, his fiancée Jan began to grow concerned, and when he hadn't returned the following morning, she reported him missing to the Gardaí, which immediately began a large-scale search for Jan, including a lot of his family members who had flown from Iceland to help in the search. In the CCTV, Jan appeared relaxed. He was smoking a cigarette, and he looked to be taking in the new city, walking slow and enjoying his holiday. And his family don't think he disappeared deliberately. He had just renewed his taxi licence back in Iceland, and he had upcoming family events he was excited for. The countless and tireless search efforts from Jan's family, friends and the local authority, along with volunteers, recovered nothing, and Jan strangely remains missing to this day. Now, there are many theories to this case, and some are outlandish and some are very plausible. The one that stands out and is most likely to have happened was from a man in 2020 who was in an Icelandic prison, and he would tell Jan's family the €4,000 he lost on the night belonged to an Icelandic criminal who was in Dublin at the time. Jan went to top up the loan of 4,000, and things turned violent as the man got angry at Jan for losing the 4,000 and accidentally killed Jan while burying him in the nearby Santry Park, which was searched as recent as 2024, but nothing was recovered. Strangely, the case remains unsolved, with no sign of Jan or any solid information on what actually happened that day. On Friday the 12th of June 2009, a man was spotted hopping onto a bus bound for Sligo from Derry, in Northern Ireland. He was carrying a shoulder bag and a generic luggage bag, and he just seemed like a normal tourist. He arrived in Sligo at around 6:30 PM, and he took a taxi to the city hotel where he paid per night in cash for a 3-night stay. Upon checking in, he gave the staff the name Peter Bergmann and an address in Austria. Hotel staff said he spoke English with a thick German accent, and that he was a heavy smoker. And throughout the course of the 3-night stay, he was caught on CCTV leaving the hotel 13 times. And strangely, each time he left with a purple plastic bag filled with unknown items, and he would return with no visible bag or items. Now, the local police would say he was disposing his belongings around Sligo, but none of these have ever been found. They said he used the blind spots of cameras around the town to hide his movements. His actions seemed professional and methodical, as though he knew exactly how to dispose of anything that could identify him. Now, adding to the strange events, hotel cleaners knocked on his door to clean the room, and there was no reply. So they went ahead and opened the door, and upon entering, he was there, and he appeared spooked, as though he was caught in the middle of doing something he shouldn't. On Saturday the 13th, he purchased 8 postal stamps and airmail stickers from the nearby post office. However, he never posted anything with these. On Sunday the 14th, he left the hotel in a taxi, asking for recommendations of a good beach for a swim. The driver suggested Ross's Point, and he drove him there. When the taxi arrived, the man we know as Peter got out of the car, stood and stared into the sea for a short time before getting back into the taxi, and he appeared content and satisfied. He checked out of the hotel on the 15th at around 1 PM, where he headed to Quayside Shopping Centre, where he was seen standing awkwardly in the doorway for several minutes. Strangely, he was seen leaving the hotel with a shoulder bag and a purple plastic bag, but with a different luggage bag. His original luggage bag was never found. He was seen leaving the shopping centre and walking toward the bus stop around 1:16 PM. By the time he reached the bus station, he only had 2 of the 3 bags he was seen leaving the hotel with. At around 2:20 PM, he got on a bus heading towards the beach in Ross's Point. And there he was seen by around 18 people on the beach throughout an hour period. And they said he looked restless and anxious, pacing up and down the beach numerous times. He was then last seen walking along the beach at 11:50 PM, and his body was then discovered the next morning at around 6:45 AM by a father and son running on the beach. Some of his clothes and belongings were found on the beach, but his luggage was never found. The autopsy report said he died from cardiac arrest, but he didn't drown despite being washed up. There were no signs of foul play and no signs of drugs in his system, and the autopsy revealed he had advanced stage prostate cancer and multiple bone tumours and a heart disease. A 5-month investigation was launched, but it was quickly revealed both his name Peter Bergmann and his address in Austria were fake. Nobody matching his appearance and name was missing anywhere in Europe, America or anywhere else. He was eventually buried in an unmarked grave in Sligo, and as of today, he has never been identified, and no one has ever come forward stating they knew him. It was also not known where his journey started. It is thought he wanted to end his life on his terms before his health issues took his life. But what was the need to make sure no one would ever find him? I guess we may never know. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.